Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am so pumped you're here today because we're jumping right into a story that is just, well, it's equal parts grounding and deeply inspiring. In this hyper-connected, constantly buzzing world of ours, we're taking a look at a guy who is beautifully bridging slow countryside living with modern digital storytelling. Today, we're focusing on Colin Statter. He's a retired river bailiff living up in the Perthshire Hills of Scotland, and he's completely transformed his deep, hands-on knowledge of nature into this thriving, authentic life as a wildlife artist. So it brings up a really fascinating question, right? What exactly can a retired river worker teach us about modern art? You'd probably think those two worlds have literally zero overlap. I mean, one involves wading through freezing Scottish waters, and the other, well, that's all about fancy galleries, curators, and highbrow critical theory. But as you're going to see, Colin absolutely proves that the very best art comes straight from lived experience. Okay, let's dive into this and see exactly how he translates one world into the other. Section 1. Art in the Digital Age. Think about the polished art world machine for a second. This is the stuff we're bombarded with online every single day. Creators who look like they were cooked up in a marketing lab, those flawless thumbnails, the perfect ring light setups, highly scripted videos. Honestly, it's kind of like a perfect falseness. But then, on the total flip side, you have Colin's homespun ecosystem. We're talking about a guy who just posts on his WordPress blog, sells his stuff on eBay, paints with a hot cup of tea next to him, and films it all on a slightly wobbly camera. It is completely untidy by professional broadcasting standards, but man, that is exactly why it feels so wonderfully human. And that brings us to who Colin actually is at his core. He's a self-made, self-publishing, countryside observer. He isn't packaged by some massive metropolitan gallery, and he definitely doesn't rely on curators using confusing, tumble-dryer sentences to explain his work to people. His authority comes from an authentic, daily connection to the Perthshire Hills. His studio is literally his garden, the riverbank, a Sunday lunch. It's the slow, steady rhythm of a life built entirely around just looking. Section 2. The River Bailiff's Eye. You see, a river bailiff's practical knowledge is just vast. We're talking water dynamics, fish behavior, the subtle shifts in weather, physical boundaries, practical ecology, and above all else, unyielding patience. When you spend years and years working around salmon, trout, and the turning of the seasons, you acquire knowledge that is intensely physical. You learn by watching. You learn by waiting. You quickly learn that the natural world absolutely does not perform on demand for anybody. This isn't just someone who likes pretty scenery. This is a guy who intimately knows how an ecosystem breathes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how that deep, physical observation learned as a bailiff translates directly into the discipline of his painting. Colin himself says, a careless brushstroke can flatten an animal into a symbol. A careful one can make it breathe. It's like a giant puzzle, really. The artist and the river worker share the exact same core discipline. Both of them have to observe deeply, carefully before taking any action. Section 3. A slower-paced practice. This perfectly shows what we mean by personal natural history. When Colin paints a wildlife subject, say a blackbird eating winter berries, he isn't just painting the species, he's capturing an entire sensory moment. You can practically feel that freezing cold air hitting your face, see the sudden flash of red fruit against those dark feathers, and really sense the hunger of garden life. Or take a field fair. It immediately brings this visceral feeling of migration and autumn. A red grouse brings the moorland, the heather, that very specific moody Scottish atmosphere. It's deeply, deeply visceral. And he builds this incredible vocabulary by painting his local neighbors over and over. Instead of chasing novelty, constantly trying to paint exotic fantasy creatures to get clicks, Colin just keeps returning to the blackbird, the oyster catcher, the hare. In an age totally obsessed with speed and finding the next big thing, this repeated practice of painting the ordinary is honestly an almost rebellious act. It's telling us, hey, wait, look again. The ordinary is not exhausted. The common bird is often way harder to paint with any kind of freshness because we just assume we already know what it looks like. Colin completely rescues it from that familiarity. Section 4. The Open Digital Studio. So how does he do it? Well, he acts as his own entire production machine. It's a really simple direct pipeline. First, he paints right there in his home studio in Scotland. Second, he films that unpolished, raw process for his YouTube channel. And third, he writes about it on WordPress and offers the finished piece on eBay. By doing this, the distance between the artist and the audience shrinks to almost zero. When you buy a painting from Colin, you aren't just buying a pretty image to hang on the wall. You're literally watching a life unfold around that image. You see the mood, the changing weather, the little imperfections, the whole shebangs. So the crucial point is this. His online presence is definitely not art as a product launch. There's no cynical marketing ploy here. It is quite literally art as life. His YouTube channel feels like an open documentary, almost like a digital studio notebook. He shows us reviews of cheap watercolor sets, he shows us his cooking, reading poetry, and just the small domestic business of living. Behind every relaxing art video is a working, breathing ecosystem of a real person just making a living. Plus, he completely refuses to stick to narrow branding, which I absolutely love. One day he's painting birds, the next he's molding air dry clay, or taking us on a countryside walk, or reading Thomas Hardy out loud. He even ties salmon flies. And if you think about it, tying a salmon fly requires the exact same knowledge of fish, color, and water as painting one does. From a modern corporate content strategy perspective, sure, it looks kind of messy, but from a human storytelling perspective, it hits the nail on the head. It feels perfectly coherent because it's the natural coherence of a lived life. Section 5. The Art of Noticing. I want you to think about this incredibly powerful idea for a second. Retirement becomes not an ending, but a conversion of knowledge. A life's experience can be composted into art. I mean, wow. That beautifully redefines what it means to step back from a traditional career, doesn't it? Colin didn't just discard his old bailiff skills. He rearranged them. His deep knowledge of fish became paintings and handmade flies. His years of quiet looking became engaging content. It's incredibly moving to realize that absolutely none of our past experiences are wasted if we just choose to compost them into something new. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of his understated ecological message. Attention is not a resource to be mined or shattered. Attention is a craft. We live in this culture that treats our attention as something to just be sold off to advertisers while we endlessly scroll past thousands of pictures a day, barely even registering a single one. But Colin's practice, painting a bird, filming a river, sharing a cup of tea, it asks us to actually stop, to attend to one living form at a time. It's this wonderful habit of noticing the living world instead of just swiping past it. So I'll leave you with this. In a culture completely obsessed with speed, what will you choose to stop and notice today? Colin Statter reminds us that art doesn't just belong to snooty institutions. It belongs to the people who notice things, make things, and share them. The next time you're rushing frantically through your day, I challenge you to channel just a little bit of that river bailiff's patience. Stop. Look again. Notice the seasons. I really hope this explainer has inspired you to find your own art in the ordinary. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to unpack more fascinating stories.